Hey, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Today's going to be a very interesting video. I have not bullet pointed this at all. I just wanted to speak from the heart to you guys. I wanted to talk about how I got everything I ever wanted on complete accident. And this isn't a clickbaity thing. This is as real as it gets. This is kind of my story in a brief of a capsule as I can possibly present it. And there's some nuggets in here, even if you don't know who I am. There are some nuggets in here to take away from it, I believe. And that's why I feel like sharing it. And that's what this channel is really all about, is giving you the most honest, uncut take that I can on whatever it is that is on my mind through my life experiences. But I grew up very poor in the countryside of Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. And, you know, it was we didn't have much of anything. A trailer kid out in the country. Ended up having parents that got divorced and moving in with my grandmother so that my sister and I could have a good place, a good steady home to live in. And that woman who was born in 1926 raised the two of us. And I grew up, as I said in my first video on this channel, not knowing what I wanted to be when I grew up, other than knowing I wanted to be a good person, a good father, a good husband. And the interesting thing about all that is that those are the things I wanted, but everything I tried to make happen myself usually fell apart. And then in the most unexpected of ways, things ended up falling together. And I really accidentally ended up where I wanted to be. And I think that within the story, there are some things that may resonate with you. And this is why I wanted to share that. I said in my first video, the earliest memories I ever had were very traumatic, stuff I wouldn't wish on anybody. And that was the first 5 years of my life, being surrounded by a lot of things that no kid should have to go through. After that, our grandmother took us in, and we had a really good childhood in that home. She gave us kind of a focus of faith, and she just kept us out of trouble for the most part, even though I did my level best to get into it over the years as well. And I got involved in all kinds of things over time, hobbies, good things, to take my mind off of things I was dealing with. My mom was in and out of women's shelters and rehab. We saw her very rarely. It was not a good situation, not an ideal situation by any means. And it was a lot to process as a kid. She married a drug dealer, and he killed her when I was 14. My sister was 12. And we'll talk about him more through the series of this channel. But it was a tough time as a kid. Even though we were in a home, in a safe place, there was a lot of chaos going on around us. And I grew up kind of a ship lost at sea, just trying to get by, trying to get through the scenarios that I was faced with. And the reason I share this is because I feel like, there is an idiom, philosophical notion, a spiritual notion that you'll never be tested with more than you can bear. So if you're going through it, you can probably get through it if you just hang in there. And that's all I knew to do, was to hang in there. And that's what I did. And I can say that in the darkest of times, in the hardest of times, if I would have given up, or if I would have chosen a different path, things could have been quite different. But I knew the person that I wanted to be, and I knew the life I wanted to have, and I pressed towards that, and I made decisions towards that end. And I accidentally got there through very little, of my own notion other than stubbornness and tenacity. But stick to itness is something that I think a lot of the newer generation lacks. And if you're watching this and you are the newer generation, I'm not bashing you at all, but I see a lot of people who, when the going gets tough, they just quit. And you don't know what's on the other side of the adversity if you just stick with it. And I'm not trying to be a motivational speaker or anything like that. I'm speaking from real life experience. My mother was killed when I was 14. Her mom had a nervous breakdown after that and died in a tragic accident 6 months later. And then my grandfather on that side died of a broken heart a year after that. I lost half of my family in the matter of a couple of years. And then when I was 18, I found out I had a biological father who I had never met. On, we live in Tennessee. He's up in Minnesota. Never met the guy. Mind-boggling stuff, Did I handle it with the best outlook? No, definitely not. But I got through it because I stuck to it, and I knew that I was taking those steps towards being the person I wanted to be. Got married. That was great for a period of time before it fell apart, and it takes two to tango in that regard, and I could point fingers, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in future videos as well. Not here to point fingers. Take responsibility for things that happen to you, the things that are happening in your life. Not the bad decisions that other people make. You don't have to take responsibility for them. Just like when I was a kid, the poor decisions of the adults in my life growing up, I don't have to assume responsibility for them. I just have to react in the best way possible. But as an adult, I have to take responsibility for my decisions, just like everyone else does. And I had a season of really tough times as an adult. It was even harder to go through, personally speaking, than losing my mom in some ways. When you get tested that way, it really makes you consider who you are and what you value and what's really important to you. And when you're faced with those decisions or those challenges and you don't even know what decision to make, all I can tell you is to just do the next right thing. My wife now tells me, be good and do good. And I know I want to be good, and I know I want to do good. And so I take steps toward those ends all the time. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are hurting because I was hurting. I think there are a lot of people out there who don't know what to do because I didn't know what to do. And you feel lost and you act self-destructive. You self-sabotage, and it doesn't gain you anything. If anything, it might only serve as a brief reprieve from whatever it is that you're feeling, but you can only stuff that stuff down so long. I avoided dealing with the death of my mom for 7 years before it dealt with me. And it was I could not get away from it any longer. It gripped me and it grabbed me, and I had a panic attack, and it changed the trajectory of my life in some ways. But I kept going through it all. And now, because I did that, because I just made decisions, I ended up doing something that, for a living, I'm good at it. It doesn't give me a lot of self-worth, but I gain that self-worth through other measures. And I think the thing is that everybody wants life to give them something, but we're all in this together and we're not owed anything. So when you view things through that lens and you know that you have to continue to take the next step, I guess that probably should be the title of this thing right here, is take the next step. I was thinking this was talking about accidentally landing in the life that I always wanted. And realistically speaking, the message for you is just to take the next step. Don't quit. Don't give up. You're going to get there if you continue to take the next step. I think there's a thing that's, failures, you only fail if you quit. If you keep taking the next step, you might fail 1,000 times before you succeed. I certainly did. I made incredibly poor decisions that hurt people. I had people in my life who made incredibly poor decisions that hurt me. I just kept taking the next step. I had jobs that didn't work out. I thought I had all the success in the world when I was a wedding photographer who was successful, that had everything I wanted and was never more miserable because I wasn't ready for the pressures that job brought with it. And I was a terrible boss to myself. So at the end of the day, I guess taking that next step is really the answer, because that's how you're going to get to where you want to go. I'm in my 40s now. In my 20s, I was just having a good time. And in my 30s, I was picking up the pieces from all of the catastrophe that happened in my 20s and healing from all the damage that happened in my, you know, teenage years and earlier than that even. And I share all this because I do something now that I'm good at, that I enjoy. I have side projects that fulfill me greatly with charity and helping other people. I've always loved community, and now my wife and I have another YouTube channel where it's all about community. It's all about hanging out, having some whiskey, having some conversation with good people, which, by the way, speaking of, I'm drinking Blue Note Juke Joint Uncut. This is our very first barrel pick ever. Never thought I would be doing barrel picks of whiskey. Been a big whiskey fan since going to college at Western Kentucky in Bowling Green, and that's over 20 years ago now. So this stuff right here, very, very good. This was our pick that we did in conjunction with the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, 123.3 proof. It's got our little sticker right there on the back of it, if you can see that. But that's me and my wife. Yeah, fun pick. Haven't tasted this one in a while. And that whiskey community is a piece of what I've always sought. I sought it in cars. I was big into cars back in the day. I was big into car stereos. I was big into watches. I was big into shoes. I was big into photography. I was big into skateboarding before even all of those. And every niche subculture community, I just took steps to become involved, because I believe in life you get out what you put in. So if you're putting in the effort to make connections with people, if you're a good person who's trying to live a good life and you're putting in that effort, you're going to eventually get what you want. It's just a matter of, are you going to get frustrated and quit along the way? Are you going to start treating people poorly along the way? And those things, while in the moment they may feel good, they may seem like the best thing to do, they don't serve your greater goals. They don't serve you and what you ultimately want. So think about that next step. Think about where you want to go, who you want to be, the life you want to live, and the things you want to have, and take those steps towards that. I'm not talking silly stuff like manifesting or anything like that. I'm talking about being intentional about the decisions that you make, because in life, all we have are our decisions that we make and our reactions to the decisions that other people make. So if you can control either one of those two things, you can't control other people's decisions. You can only control how you react to them and where you go from those decisions. So I hope this brings something good to you. I hope it encourages you in some way. I'm sitting here even now, and this is early on in this channel's life. There's so much self-doubt when I come on here and talk about these things. But I really do want to encourage you, and I want to share my life experiences, because there are pieces of my life where I've been through things that nobody should have to go through, yet a lot of people have. And there's a lot of people in my life who I've been affected by, and they've gone through things that nobody should have to go through, but they have. And that may be you. You may be watching this right now, and you may be feeling some of the things that I'm feeling, or some of the things I've felt in the past. Feeling like you have no clue what to do, feeling like you have no clue how you're going to get through the situation that you're in. And it really does come down to taking the next step. Wow, this whole thing took a really crazy turn. Cheers to things going where they need to go. This very video right here is a testament to the fact that I thought I was going to come on and share how I ended up where I wanted to be by accident. And really, it's about encouraging you to stick with it. Cheers. Having been a fan of whiskey and loving sitting down to share a good pour with good company and really talk like this, having it be a two-way conversation, that is always something that has meant a lot to me. The fact that we can go to distilleries, pick our own barrels, put our stamp of approval on them, and release that to people who enjoy our whiskey content. Never in a million years would have thought I'd be doing that. And here I am. We're doing that a dozen times or more every single year. And we have an incredible community that's come from it. And I could never have dreamed that we would have that. Even we started that channel 3 years ago. 4 years ago, it wasn't even a thought. And I just took a step. I said, this could be fun. Let's try this. And it has become, through that channel, we have made an amazing community. We have developed an amazing community. I've started a charity foundation that, even though my job every day, I work at UPS, I drive, love driving, just get to watch the miles pass by. It's a great time, but it doesn't fulfill me. But the charity ventures that I do through the Whiskey Channel and the charity organization that I helped found through that, those fulfill me greatly. So how did I do it? I just took the next step. And you can too. You don't have to be a prisoner, and you are not a prisoner to your circumstances. It's not just that you don't have to be. You're not. You just have to decide that you're going to open the cell and walk out of whatever you're dealing with, and you're going to take those steps towards who you want to be. So we're going to leave it there. Thank you for tuning in. Next weekend, there probably won't be one of these. I try to do one of these every weekend, but next weekend is our charity event for our charity organization that we helped start, and we're donating $40,000 to charities that include mental health, cancer, children's charities, and military charities. Folds of Honor, Make-A-Wish, American Cancer Society, and To Write Love on Her Arms. We're presenting checks to those charities at our annual event. Never in a million years thought I'd be doing that. I simply took the next step. So if you're dealing with something that's really rough and you don't know what you're going to do or how you're going to handle it, that's what I encourage you to do, just to take that next step, stick with it. Don't let life beat you down. Having a little bit of tenacity. Don't be stubborn. I can be quite stubborn. Don't do that. That's not good. But having some tenacity and some stick-to-itness to get to where you want to go, there's a lot to be said for that. And it's needed today. It's very much needed. So hopefully you needed this. If you're watching this, thank you for being a part of this. We're going to cap it there. May not have one of these next week, but I'll be back as soon as I can with whatever else is on my mind, hanging out, sharing a pour. That's what life is all about to me. So, cheers.